I'm not sure we can start this episode any more perfectly than this, Ryan. Right here on the Shout Buffalo Football Podcast, Denver is getting absolutely turned up for Bills versus Broncos. I know it's loud right now. I think it'll quiet down in a second. I'll come into the picture here with a little Chris Collinsworth slide in. Ryan Talbot, Shout Buffalo Football Podcast is live. It is the preview episode, Bills versus Broncos. We're going to talk about this game from every single angle. I'm here at Stoney's Uptown, downtown Denver, one of the official homes of Buffalo Bills fans, Bills Backers Bar here in Denver. Check this out, Ryan Talbot. This is absolutely awesome. They gave me some swag, man. Check this thing out here. I'm official, part of the Denver Bills Backers. Very cool. How are you, buddy?
Hey, I am doing great, and obviously big game on the horizon, less than 24 hours away. Bills versus Broncos, and, you know, Matt, there's no better place to start than with Ed Oliver and the news that came out today.
Yeah, so Ed Oliver has been ruled out, or has been ruled in for this week's game, which is an unbelievable bit of news that we're sitting here a couple days removed from him literally starting to practice, and now he's going to be available to play in this game. I don't know how many snaps he's going to play, Ryan. I think just the juice you're going to get for Ed Oliver back in the lineup, in and of itself, I think as the fourth defensive tackle at the very least, is going to give the Bills the kind of pass rush juice that they're going to need against a team that doesn't really give up a lot of sacks. They don't turn the ball over. They haven't this season. Getting Ed Oliver back in the spot, it's absolutely huge news.
Yeah, it's massive for this Bills defense. And you're right, even if he doesn't play a significant role or massive snaps, it's a boost to this defensive line. It brings them that extra energy knowing that you're getting Ed Oliver back, who was essentially in a very, very small sample size, one of your best, if not the best defender early this season for the Bills. So getting him back, even in a limited capacity, even if he's at less than 100%, is huge for the Bills. And like you said, it brings a lot of juice. And, you know, Bills Mafia, if you're looking to get a lot of juice this weekend, head over to Tops Friendly Markets. I know it's usually Slider Sunday, but tomorrow, special occasion, Slider Saturday. Get ready for Slider Saturday your way with King's Hawaiian at Tops. Every Saturday or Sunday is an opportunity to enjoy delicious sliders made your way, and you can win big while doing it. Vote for your favorite slider weekly for a chance to win a man cave makeover. Grab your favorite King's Hawaiian products from Tops and create the sliders to make your Saturday or Sunday even more special. Visit topsmarket.com/Slider Sunday.
How much did you lose of me there when I was talking about Oliver?
You were cutting out a little bit here and there. You froze for a half second, but I think we all got the message across.
All right, cool. You know, the Oliver piece to this whole thing is interesting because I think, Ryan, we thought going into this weekend's game that DeMar Hamlin was going to be back in the safety role, playing opposite Cole Bishop. He is not. He's not elevated, or he's not activated off of injured reserve. So now the Bills are going to have to find an answer without Jordan Poyer at safety opposite Bishop. Bishop's been so good. I think you could probably put anybody back there with him, and the Bills will have answers. They'll be able to do what they've done such a good job of over the course of this season. But how surprised are you that Hamlin is not going to play in this game? And then the other piece of this is, too, where do the Bills go from here in terms of who they decide to go with? My personal opinion is probably Cam Lewis, but maybe Sean McDermott decides to give Jordan Hancock another shot after maybe some of it didn't go his way last week.
Yeah, I was moderately surprised when I saw that DeMar Hamlin was not activated, was not brought up for this game from the injured reserve, because it seemed like it was trending in that direction with the Jordan Poyer news. Seeing Hamlin had been back a little bit longer in terms of the practice window being open. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity to bring back Ed Oliver, you 100% have to do it. Curtis Samuel is a necessity in the wide receiver room at this point. The other player that was brought back for this game specifically coming off of the IR. So in terms of who was brought back, it made perfect sense. And then when you look at this Bills roster, you know, I'm intrigued to see what Jordan Hancock can do given maybe a week of reps, knowing that he could be the guy. And if it's not him, you have Cam Lewis, you have Darnell Savage on this roster. They had other options. So versus bring back a potential game changer in Ed Oliver, bring back a very important wide receiver in Curtis Samuel, who did some damage last year against Denver. When you weigh those positions and those players, it makes a lot of sense that Hamlin was the odd man out.
The pressure rate in this game on both sides of the ball is going to be really important. And when you look at the Bills' defensive line with adding Ed Oliver back into the mix, I think that helps Joey Bosa and Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa. The thing about this game, though, is, Ryan, Andre Jones, who has been a really big part of things over the last 3 weeks, he is not elevated. So they're going to have to rely on either Javon Solomon as that fourth edge rusher in the rotation, or ask Rousseau and Epinesa to play even more percentage of the snaps. And the issue there is these are both guys that are dealing with injuries. They're both on the injury report. I know nobody feels 100% this time of the year, but from a health perspective, that is definitely a little bit of a concern, because I think one of the things that Bo Nix can do, he can win in some spots if you're not able to affect him in the pocket. I think the Bills, when they're at their best, they're able to get their rush and their coverage working together. I think it's a big key in this game to be able to get pressure on Bo Nix, win up the middle. I think you have all of your horses on the interior to get that done. How worried are you about what the situation on the perimeter, given the struggles that Joey Bosa had last week, and then some of these other players that are dealing with some injuries?
Yeah, there's always some concern, but at the same time, this is a winner-go-home situation. So you ride with your top players, and that means throwing Bosa out there for a high number of snaps. And, he's coming off of a poor performance. He's coming off of a performance where Bobby Babich pretty much told him, don't let it happen again. We need you. And if there's one player on this team that's used to playing in Denver, it's going to be Joey Bosa. Obviously, from his time with the Chargers, went there every single season, at least once per year. So he's going to be acclimated to the elevation levels, know what to expect there. So first and foremost, he is going to be the most important player coming off the edge. Greg Rousseau is next. 5 sacks, 13 quarterback pressures in the last 4 weeks. He needs to continue right where he left off. So you ride your top 2 players, you sprinkle in A.J. Epinesa, and then if you need to bring someone else in, yeah, you might have to throw Solomon in for a few reps here and there. I know that he has not performed well in terms of off the edge this year, but in a very limited role, I don't think it would hurt you to kind of mix him in here and there.
To me, where I think the pressure rate is going to be at its highest and the most opportunity for the Bills is on the interior. Oliver, Daquan Jones, Deion Walker, TJ Sanders, Fedarian Mathis. There is a situation brewing on this Broncos offensive line. I was listening to Football 301, the Nate Tice, Charles McDonald podcast earlier today, and Nate Tice brought up a great stat. Over the last couple of weeks since Luke Wattenberg went on injured reserve, their starting center for 15 games this season, Austin Forsythe has been in there at center, and it has not looked good. They've given up 5 sacks over the last 2 weeks, and this is a team that, Ryan, through the first 15 games this season, their sack rate allowed was first in the NFL. They kept Bo Nix upright. They took sacks and they turned the ball over at the 3rd lowest percentage number in the NFL. Since Wattenberg went out, it's been a completely different story. And so I'm looking at some of these interior rushers to be able to affect Bo Nix, because we saw last week on the road against the Jaguars, find a way to create a short field for Josh Allen in this offense once or twice in this game. It pays huge dividends on the road.
Yeah, it absolutely pays huge dividends. And you look at what the Bills have. Ed Oliver coming back, applying some interior pressure. Deion Walker has been unbelievable all season long, not just at stopping the run, but also getting after the quarterback, getting some pressures, getting his hands up on some passes. And you're starting to see TJ Sanders come into his own, Jones, and that list goes on. Mathis, who really turned things around quickly for Buffalo after a rough few weeks early on in his Bills tenure. So they definitely have the guys in the middle of this defense to create issues and create havoc. And, you mentioned a number there, Matt, 2.2 plays per game for the Broncos in terms of plays that resulted in a sack or a turnover. I'm going to throw another number at you, and it's 3, as in 3 and outs. The Broncos were 3rd in the league this season in terms of the most 3 and outs on their offense. So while that's not the same as an interception or a fumble recovery, in a way, that's going to be a turnover of sorts that the Bills have to create tomorrow. They need to get as many possessions as possible, limit Denver's time on the field. And if you can force those 3-and-outs, which has been an Achilles heel for Denver, that's another way that you can maximize your possessions and really frustrate Denver and maybe get them into a hole.
You know how you get 3-and-outs, Ryan? You stop the run. And that's something that the Bills just this season at any point, even last week in a limited sample size, Jacksonville just refused to run the ball. The Bills struggled to stop things. And I think getting Ed Oliver back also helps in that department. He brings kind of a mentality. To me, they're a different run defending team when Ed Oliver's on the team or available. And so I think that's going to be a big piece of this thing. You look at RJ Harvey on the other side, and with J.K. Dobbins out, they've had to really lean into their rookie running back. And I just think that he's probably a year away from being the kind of explosive weapon that they drafted him to be. Can he break off a big run? Of course. I mean, he's an NFL running back. That's not an area of this offense that I'm necessarily concerned about. So if you're the Bills on early downs and you can really sell out to set the stage for the day and stop the run early in this game, get them to kick the ball, get play from ahead, to me, that's another kind of big key to this game.
Yeah, and Denver's well aware of Buffalo's struggles against the run. I mean, Sean Payton even said he's going to write something on his call sheet that says, don't forget to stop run or, continue to run the ball. I'm sure he watched that game last week and was wondering why Jacksonville went away from the run at times after the success that they were having. And that's not the first team this season that has done that against Buffalo, where they almost feel like they have to throw the ball more. Maybe they know how Josh Allen, this offense at times can get going, and it will be hard to match them if not. But I expect Denver to come in and really test Buffalo's run defense. And if they have success, they could keep going to it. I know RJ Harvey has not had the success that J.K. Dobbins has had this year in Denver. But until the Bills can prove that they can stop the run consistently, I think that Denver's really going to challenge them, first quarter all the way to the fourth quarter.
The linebacker situation is probably one of the last things I want to cover on the Bills' defensive side of the ball. What do the Bills do here? Because you have Terrell Bernard, who's kind of lingering, questionable for this game. He was kind of limited in practice. But you bring him back, you probably can't activate Balin Spector. You probably make him inactive, and that costs you a special teams job. And then the question is, how much you're going to be able to get Bernard on the field. I think you could probably run some 3 linebacker sets. But I also think that you want to have Taron Johnson on the field in this game against, an Evan Ingram. And, I think that he's a blitzing weapon at times. What do the Bills do here at linebacker if Terrell Bernard's ready to go?
Yeah, if Bernard's ready to go, like you said, it costs them it might cost them a special teams linebacker job, something like that. But you play him in a depth role. I mean, simply put, you can't take Shaq Thompson off the field. You can't take Matt Milano off the field. Those guys both made impact plays last week against Jacksonville. You can mix him in, but you're not going to play him in a massive role. He has not been right all season long. I know he is the defensive captain of this team. If you want to sprinkle him in, see what he looks like after a few weeks removed from this injury, I'm okay with that. But at the same time, you don't take your best players off. You can mix and match your personnel. I agree with you on Taron Johnson. I think he is a key to this game. You want him on the field as many reps as possible. I know he may not be the same Johnson from a few seasons ago, but I still think he's one of the better nickel cornerbacks in this league, and the way that you can match him up against Evan Ingram, you can blitz him at times. That's too important. So, yeah, it's all about, using the Rolodex, so to speak, that the Bills have done on defense, mixing and matching the personnel based on what they're seeing from Denver. I think that that's something that Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich have gotten very comfortable with doing, especially over the second half of the season.
As we kind of shift gears to the offensive side of the ball, I think, one of the things there's 2 big factors that I think are, playing into how the Bills are going to attack things offensively. Number one, the elevation factor is something that the Bills have kind of downplayed all week long. The other thing is the Bills are coming off a short week. They're only getting 6 days rest against a team that has basically had 2 weeks to rest their players, get everybody as close to 100% as possible. I do think that the Bills can maybe catch Denver sleeping a little bit. Sometimes when you get that extra week of rest, you maybe don't start in a game as quickly. So I think the Bills want to be ultra aggressive on offense coming out in this one. You're not going to have Ty Johnson, most likely. He's questionable. You're elevating Frank Gore Jr., which probably tells us he won't be available in this game, which I think they're going to miss him. He's huge in the run game on third downs. They're going to miss him in the passing game from a blocking perspective and beyond. But I think starting fast in this game, I've kind of been harping on this with our guy, Big Stud Bundy, for weeks. This is a game, if you win the toss, if I'm Sean McDermott, I'm probably taking the ball because I want to get Josh Allen on the field. I want to try to play from ahead. And even if it's subconsciously put a little bit of extra pressure on Bo Nix in this offense, maybe force Sean Payton into a little bit more aggressive style of play call.
And I don't hate that, but I would be very surprised if that's the route that the Bills went. They have just become so accustomed to essentially deferring, taking the ball in the second half. And I know you've talked about it. You've brought it up to Sean McDermott. If your defense is so good in the second half, why not give them the extra possession? I think the Bills like to try to do the double dip, score before halftime, get the ball to start the third quarter, and that can also put the opposing team in a little bit of a bind and make them have to play a little bit more aggressively later in the game. But I don't disagree with that mentality. The Bills need to come out and score quickly in this game. Now, if they do go out on defense first, if they can get a 3-and-out, which we just talked about a few minutes ago, that's been an issue for Denver this year, that can be that hot start for Buffalo. Put them in that 7-0 hole, but without Ty Johnson, most likely, that's going to be challenging because there was a play last week where Allen made an unbelievable throw down the field to Elijah Moore, but he had Shakirin blocking.
Elijah Moore.
Or did I say Elijah? Brandon Cooks. See? Oh, I just wrote a story about Elijah Moore. So Brandon Cooks down the field for that big gain. And you had Khalil Shakirin blocking, and it just did not go well because that's generally what Ty Johnson would do in that possession. And you go back to the playoff game last year and that touchdown catch in the back of the end zone where Allen was running around on fourth down and finally heaved to the back of the end zone. That was Johnson having the wherewithal to keep his feet in bounds. He does so many things so well, so he will be a big loss. But, Matt, there's other ways to attack this Denver Broncos defense, and I think it starts with the tight ends.
I love that transition, Ryan, and I think this is the game that I think if you go back a couple of years to when Brandon Beane decided to draft Dalton Kincaid, they changed the kind of identity of their passing game, and they made him kind of the centerpiece of it. The lack of attention at the wide receiver position over the last 2 years has by default put an extra layer of pressure on I think Dalton Kincaid, but I think he's ready to step up into that role. He's been one of the most explosive tight ends in the NFL this season. When Josh Allen has thrown his way, when he's been on the field, even though he's playing a little bit less percentage of the snaps, he's been electric. And I think this is a defense, as good as they are, they get pressure with their four. They can send some different pressure, simulated pressures that can put you in a bind. They have really great secondary play, starting with Patrick Surtain. But where they haven't been maybe great or elite is defending against tight ends this season. They rank 18th in the league from a DVOA perspective against opposing teams' tight ends. Dalton Kincaid and even Dawson Knox and Jackson Hawes, this could be a game to where Josh Allen has a lot of trust in those guys, get the ball in their hands in the passing game, and keep moving the drives. And they're going to be big pieces in the red zone too. This is a Broncos defense that is as good as any team in the league in the red zone, keeping you out from getting 7 points. Last season in the playoff game against the Broncos, the Bills scored 31, but they went 1 for 5 in the red zone. So they make it really tough on you. The tight ends are going to be key.
Yeah, that final score last year was a little bit deceiving because it was a close game early in the fourth quarter, and then the Bills really did pull away with it late with multiple scores. So Denver's going to be up to the task. And when you look at the Bills wide receiver room right now, beat up, Gabe Davis, Shavers, both out with the ACLs. This is the perfect game to lean into your tight ends and use that 12 personnel, even 13 personnel. And it's not just based on the struggles that the Broncos have had this year against tight ends, but it certainly helps in that matter as well. Buffalo's offense with Dalton Kincaid on the field has been so much more efficient than when he's been off, when he's been dealing with injuries. You throw in Dawson Knox, who late in the season really saw his role increase, and you saw how much he mattered to this team still. And then you throw in even Jackson Hawes, who has come in as a rookie and made big plays as a blocker, as a pass catcher, you name it, does a little bit of everything. They can really hurt you with those three tight ends. And in addition to the tight ends, Matt, another key to this game might be Alec Anderson in that jumbo role.
Yeah, I've been waiting all season for this, right, Ryan? Like, I don't know if the Bills are at this stage with how they've turned things over so much to Hawes and the options that it gives them when they do go to 12 or 13 personnel if they're going to go away from that. Now, if you go back to last season in this game against the Broncos, Alec Anderson was on the field for 22 snaps. So even if you don't want to go that far back into the jumbo realm, if you will, I do think there's a world where you can get him on the field for 5 to 10 snaps and at least force an undersized front in Denver to play a bigger bodied front when you get all of these 320 pounders on the field. Then you get Jackson Hawes out there. Then you get Dawson Knox out there. And then it's like, all right, what are you going to do to defend them? Because they can still throw out of those plays, which I think is something that over the course of this season, Joe Brady has come out and said, the reason we like Jackson Hawes so much in that role is because it puts the defense in a bind because you don't know if they're going to throw or run. But I still think you could find a way to throw even if Anderson's out there if you have Hawes and Knox on the field too.
Yeah, and I would love to see them come out and use Alec Anderson early in this game. Play a little bit of bully ball, really beat up on Denver early in this game and make them, take their lumps because by the fourth quarter, they'll be feeling it. And even without Alec Anderson, Matt, if you look at the Bills' O-line versus the defensive front of the Denver Broncos, there's about a 230-pound difference between the Bills' O-line and Denver's front. And that just kind of goes to show you how undersized Denver is. You throw Alec Anderson in the mix, play bully ball, give the ball to James Cook, try to reestablish that run. And maybe that's where we'll transition to next is Buffalo's run offense versus Denver's run defense. But I think this is going to be a big opportunity for the Bills to run on the ground.
They have an interesting run defense because statistically speaking, they're amongst the best in the league. I mean, the Jags went into the playoffs as the number 1 ranked run defense. The Broncos were right there at number 2. Now, some of the really good running backs that they faced this season, I went back and watched a little bit of that Packers game. Josh Jacobs had at least one really good explosive run, and that is something that we really get used to with James Cook in a lot of these games, is if he can get you for 2 or 3 explosive runs throughout the game, he's so consistently able to get those 5 or 6 yard runs that keep drives going that when he hits you with the explosives, that's when I feel like it really debilitates a defense. So to me in this game, you go back to last year, 120 yards rushing. They have Dre Greenlaw playing not at 100% at the middle linebacker spot. I think there's going to be some areas if you block things up front for James Cook to get to the second level and put those linebackers and some of those other players. The safety, though, I want to talk about him. Is it Tavai? Who's an absolute beast. That's going to be one guy that I think the Bills are going to have to be hyper aware of.
Sure, absolutely be aware of him. You obviously have to be aware of Patrick Surtain. Some of the guys that they have on that back end of the defense are as legitimate as they come. So Buffalo's game plan has to be pretty smart in this matchup. And that goes back to what I was saying, man. It's all about running the ball from you early in this game. Establish the run, and then that's going to open up the pass. I look at the size differential on Buffalo's O-line, and I think there's going to be a real opportunity for Buffalo to have success on the ground, much like James Cook had success last year. And I told you on our Wednesday Staples show, I said my bold prediction is James Cook goes for over 150 yards in this game on the ground. I really love this opportunity for Cook, the way that he can turn the smallest hole into a large game, and then you throw in the mismatch in size. I think this is going to be a good opportunity for Buffalo to get their running offense back on track.
Yeah, I love staying there on the run game. I think it's also a game where last week we didn't really see it, but I do think this is a Broncos defense where if you get the ball in the hands of your backs, looking at Ray Davis, I'm looking at James Cook, you can do some damage in the passing game. And I think it's just going to be about stabilizing everything on offense, not making any mistakes, not turning the ball over, and not letting this Denver Broncos defense tee off on Josh Allen. They did a really good job. I mean, Benito had 4 pressures. Zach Allen was the guy that had 6. The one guy I do want to mention on this defensive line for the Broncos that I'm pretty sure he didn't play for the Broncos last year was John Franklin Myers. These are really, really good players. And maybe he was in that game and I'm just forgetting, but he's always played well against Josh Allen and the Bills. He's somebody that they're going to have an eye on in this game. Yeah,
obviously has a ton of experience against Josh Allen from his time in the AFC East before landing in Denver. Very familiar. And for the Bills, with the talent that Denver has on that defensive side of the ball, it's about giving Josh Allen those easy targets, the easy plays. And to Allen's credit, last week, I thought he was brilliant at taking what was given to him. And that had been the biggest issue with him going into the end of the season. He takes that extra week off, And then all of a sudden he gets to watch those cut-ups. And from there, everything goes really well. And speaking of ease, Matt, there's nothing easier than taking an Amtrak to any kind of destination that you want. There's comfort, no middle seats, plenty of leg room, reclining seats. You can stretch out, read, work, and move on, watch a movie, sleep. Ease of travel, free Wi-Fi, no baggage fees, generous baggage policy, a cafe car. You don't even have to arrive 2 hours before departure. So check out Amtrak.com, a proud sponsor of Shout. Matt, let's get into our key of the game. Go ahead, you first.
All right, so I'm going to hit you with both of them, the key to the game and the prediction before we get out of here. My key to the game, number one, more important than anything else, and we kind of touched on it already, but it is really just put Bo Nix into a world of misery. And it's a two-pronged key. Number one, you have to be able to affect him in the pocket. Hit him, sack him, get him off of his mark, force him to make quick-fire decisions and put the ball in danger. And then at the second level, you got to be able to take the ball away. One of the things that I think makes Bo Nix an intriguing young quarterback is his ability as a dual-threat runner. You want to get him out in space, and when you do get a chance to put a hit on him, you got to get that ball out. You got to put the ball on the ground. He's going to probably try to scramble a couple times in this game. The Bills have to get to the ball and make sure to try to put the ball on the ground. They do a good job of that traditionally. This is going to be a tough game on the road. Winning 2 back-to-back games on the road is about as tough of a ask in January as you can get. The Bills are playing on a short week. They're playing in elevation. They have all of these important pieces unavailable. But I think the return of Ed Oliver and the way that Josh Allen is playing, the reset that he was able to get going into the playoffs, I think is enough. I think the Bills win this game 23-17. Ryan, what do you got?
Yeah, listen, my key for the game, and we have a quick shout out here. Go Bills from Buffalo's new guy. Thank you for the super chat. For me, it's all about confusing Bo Nix on defense. Against disguised looks, he has really struggled this year. 5 interceptions, second most in the league, 61.4 passer rating, third worst in the league, 5.4 yards per attempt, lowest in the league. When you can give those disguised looks, Nix has really struggled. Buffalo does it better than anyone late in the season. I think that's going to work to their advantage. Last week, we saw Buffalo's defenders getting their hands up on a lot of passes, batting them up in the air. Good things happen when that happens as well. And then on the other side of the ball, run, and run some more. Let James Cook be your workhorse in this game. I think he can go off against an undersized Broncos defense. And for me, I have the Bills winning this one 30-20.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I want to give one final shout out to Stoney's Uptown here in Denver, hosting us on the Shout podcast. A huge shout out to the Denver Bills backers who have been so gracious. They're doing a great job. They're doing some charity work here for a group back in Orchard Park. So make sure you head over to all their social channels and check it out. I want to make sure to give that a shout out as well. Ryan, we're less than 24 hours away from game time. Final thoughts. Send us out of here, buddy.
Final thought, we will be with you post-game at some point after tomorrow's Bills-Broncos matchup, either talking about Buffalo moving on to the AFC title game or putting a bow on the season. Stick with us. We'll have you covered after the game.
All right, everybody, take care. From Denver, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.